Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is the wrap-up episode of A View to a Kakuranger. This whole year, plus, we have been watching every week an episode of Ninja Sentai Kakuranger. We've been telling you what we think about it, and now we're going to do that in sort of like a wrap-up holistic way. We're going to talk about how we felt about the series as a whole. Yeah. Once again, it is an unusual episode this week. We are skipping the 5 stars because we just sort of want to chat about Kakuranger for a bit. So we will get back to those next week. But for now, Dave, man, how do you feel about Kakuranger?
Okay. I dig it. It was a ton of fun.
Gotta open a cold bev here. All right, proceed.
Okay.
We're keeping it a little loose here.
I really, really liked it a lot. But now having finished it is where I sort of, like, as part of this retrospective, I kind of start to stack it up against, like, Dairanger and Jetman.
See, this is where it comes down to it.
Yeah. Now that the whole thing is over and done with. So, the things that I really dug about Kakuranger, I feel like they sort of embraced the ninja-ness of their, like, I feel like they embraced the theme a lot more than either Dairanger or Jetman really did.
Right.
You know,
well, Jetman only sort of loosely had a theme, right?
Yeah, like they were bird-oriented, and they had fighter jets. And, like, that's kind of it. Like, we saw a little bit of stuff, but, like, once they got past Phoenix, the Jet Phoenix, and it was just, Jet Icarus, that was kind of it as far as, like, the jet theme went. And, Dairanger, they did have a couple of, like, kung fu specific episodes,
sure, but like the theme in Dairanger was much more about like the history of the Dai tribe versus the Goma tribe, right? Which was like kind of tied into like a kung fu theme.
That was cool. Yeah. But Kakuranger is a ninja show, and it was like, even, okay, so there were moments where it was like, why would ninjas be doing this? But it really was, like, pretty full-on ninja. Like, they really dug deep on, like, ninja magic and, like, as far as I can tell, at least what is, like, traditionally fictional about ninjas, like ninja cloning and, like, they can replace themselves with logs and illusions and stuff like that.
And it wasn't just that they were, really kept to, like, the ninja aspect of the theme. It was that the whole show was very rooted in, like, we talked about it a lot at the beginning of the season, then sort of fell off, because I think it was a little less pushed as we went further into the show. But, or maybe we just got used to it. But the whole show, like, with the yokai as the enemies, the whole thing was really rooted in a very... I mean, okay, obviously, it's the Sentai version of it, but, like, they really went all in on saying, like, no, this is a Japanese, like, this show is as Japanese as we can make it.
Yeah, like, we were gonna, well, I mean, from our perspective, as far as doing the show, how many times do we want to talk about, like, yeah, this monster's also super based on a you know what I mean, like...
Right.
There's only so many jokes you can make about it.
It's not just lip service.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very cool, and I very much got the feeling that the people making the show had a lot of fun doing that and, like, really getting it right.
Yeah, it really, like, now when we were able to do a little bit of research, like the two white American guys, like, when we did a little bit of research, it turns out those Japanese show writers, like, actually really knew their stuff, guys.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right?
Blowing your minds, right?
I bet you're all glad that we're here for you to deliver these truths.
I feel like think that is undercut by a repeated insistence that we basically do zero research for any element of this show.
Okay, now to be fair, we do very little research, but this year, a lot of you listeners wrote in with a lot of good stuff that we tried to be good about remembering to actually say on the show. So we did get some good information out to the rest of you, thanks to you as well. So thanks guys.
To you as well. Right, you, the collective, helped yourselves out. The vector was us, and so you're welcome. So yeah, I really, really dug that element of the show. I thought it was super cool. I think it gave it a cohesiveness that really Dairanger and Jetman sort of both lacked.
Well, and it was good that it did, because, and I think we're talking about the pros of the show right now, and we're going to get to the cons eventually, but I think that to the extent that this show has negative elements, it is that in many ways it was not cohesive. Like, it was kind of hard to keep the whole thing together, like, story-wise. And so... Yeah. Keeping it all together very strongly with like the theme and the world was a very sort of important part of like keeping this show on as much on the rails as it managed to stay.
I actually wonder, Matt, now that you've said that, because you're totally right, I wonder how much of that is kind of like inversely proportional, because like I said, with Jetman, with Dairanger, it was really kind of wide open. They could sort of do whatever they wanted. And so it was very easy maybe for the writers of the show to keep things cohesive. Whereas if they said, listen, we're doing ninjas and we're doing yokai, like that's the deal, it may have been a little bit tougher to like maneuver within that framework to make a story as cohesive as we did see. And, Dairanger, as much as anything in Dairanger was cohesive. But definitely in Jetman.
But, specifically in Jetman. That I think will be something interesting to keep an eye on as we continue to watch this show. Like, if there is a repeating thing where there's like an inverse relationship between strength of and commitment to the theme and like actual strong plot for the season.
I don't know. I guess
it might be a total coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, man. So, the Rangers themselves, I dug. I think I dug Tsuruhime the most.
Okay, so this is a question that we were going to get to, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite of the Kakurangers?
I think it's gotta be Tsuruhime.
And you were allowed to say best and favorite separately if you would like to.
Okay, well, my favorite, I think, is Jiraiya.
Okay.
Because he's so, like, his entrance with, like, the rollerblades and the cowboys, and I really dig the fact that he's American. I thought that was really, I mean, like, I obviously am also American, but I thought it was really fun that they got a dude who was Japanese American, and they're like, no, come do this thing, but we're not going to ignore the fact that you're American. Like, we're going to tie it in. It's going to be part of the plot. You're going to speak English sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're going to be a rollerblading cowboy ninja.
But and what was very cool about Jiraiya is that that wasn't just an aesthetic thing about Jiraiya, right? It was actually part of his character sort of throughout, because he would be the guy who like kind of didn't latch into all of the a lot of the cues that other people would automatically pick up on. Jiraiya was always sort of like struggling, and like from what, I don't think we mentioned this, but at some point I got an email because we were talking about how his Japanese became like basically perfect as the show went on.
Yeah.
We only thought that because we don't speak Japanese. Apparently his Japanese throughout the show, like, it gets better, but it definitely is with an accent and kind of broken sometimes.
No kidding. Well, that's really, really neat. I dig that. That makes me dig it even more. Actually,
yeah. I was listening to a different podcast about Kakuranger at one point,
really?
As though such a thing could. Listen, they weren't the best. They were not exclusively about Kakuranger. It was a Sentai show. They had an episode about Kakuranger. It was on the Tokusatsu network.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Who were also the people who will occasionally interview old tokusatsu actors. So I'll check in on there occasionally. And they had like a big 2-episode retrospective on the entire series of Kakuranger. And this is going back some months when I listened to it, so I'm forgetting half the details. But one of the people sort of on the panel of the show was Japanese American. And she was talking about like how much the character of Jiraiya meant to her specifically, because like they really did a good job of nailing like how people in that sort of situation, like how that affects their sort of relationship with the people around them, and like their character. And I just thought it was a very interesting note that like I don't have a lot of personal ability to plug into, but I think it was very cool that they did that.
Yeah, that is okay. Yeah, see, I didn't know that. That is super, super fun.
See, I do some research.
So I think Jiraiya is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best Ranger has got to. I think it's got to be Tsuruhime.
Yeah.
She's, you know, she's the one with the most character. She's got the most, and you know, I think that really comes. Okay, it comes down to the writing. Like, yeah, obviously,
sure,
but you know, she's the character with the most development. She's got the most. You know, she's got the most investment. Like, her dad's part of the show. There's Taro and Jiro. All of this stuff. And as much as I do dig the other Rangers, I think just the fact that she's got so much development. And I really dig that even though she's not the Red Ranger, and she's not the field commander, Tsuruhime definitely is the kind of the boss of the Rangers.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
At the end, Sasuke does start, I think, to step into that role a little bit more. But even then, it feels like they are co-leaders. Like, at no point does Sasuke be like, I'm the boss of Tsuruhime. Like, that vibe never comes through. So I really liked that. They kind of switched it up. That A, the leader was a girl, and B, that it wasn't the Red Ranger.
You know, I think, now that I'm thinking about this show in relation to the other shows that we've watched, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am kind of thinking about the fact that Tsuruhime is in many ways like, what if they took Rin from Dairanger but spent more time on her? Because if you remember in Dairanger, like Rin and Kazu, I remember at the end of the series feeling like those were the two that had gotten sort of short shrift and like not enough attention throughout the series.
Yeah. I dig that.
But Rin was very much sort of set up to be this Tsuruhime-esque character, right? Like, she was the one whose family was most connected to, like, the legacy of the Dairangers. Her uncle was in a bunch of episodes.
Right. She herself is Chinese.
Right. And so she was really set up to play that role in the first couple of episodes of Dairanger. And then it just kind of never went anywhere. And it's really exciting to get a show like Kakuranger where Tsuruhime really shows us what it is like to have that done successfully, and also with a character that rules, because Tsuruhime is awesome.
Yeah, Tsuruhime is super, super great.
Sasuke did come a very long way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think that he showed the most sort of range throughout the show, which I think was cool. He had, like, the biggest growth. Because, like, Jiraiya showed up, and he was, like, basically on the ball, right? As did Tsuruhime.
Right.
And Jiraiya actually got, I think, maybe the second most, like, personal episodes. Like, he has a family and a backstory and like a tragic origin with like his dad being murdered by his dad's best friend, who then became his father figure, who they had to have like a fight in the like a ninja fight in the OK Corral.
Man, that was such a good
episode. The Gali Sensei episodes were amazing. So like Jiraiya got a lot of that, and of course Tsuruhime got a ton of that. Sasuke didn't really. Like, he had a cousin that they met at one point, but that could have just been any kid, really.
Well, straight up, I forgot that cousin existed. So clearly, it wasn't that interesting.
Yeah, and like to my knowledge, Seikai and Saizo do not have families. But Sasuke really did get the most growth. Like if you sort of just go into a couple of different touch points in the series, like the first couple of episodes where he's basically he's basically just Saizo again. Like in the first couple of episodes, those two are really like on par with each other.
Yeah.
Not to say that Saizo didn't come into his own, but he didn't really get the room to breathe that the other two. Saizo and Seikai both. I feel like every year, two of the Rangers just don't get a lot to do.
Yep. It was absolutely... They were fun, and Seikai ate a bunch, and Saizo was a goofball, but beyond that, there's just not a lot happening with those dudes.
Yeah, they are the Akko and Raita of this season, or the Kazu and Rin of this season.
Right.
I love them all dearly, but they just didn't get a lot of screen time.
Okay, so I mean, after that, who's your favorite and who's the best, or are you doubling down with me?
Oh no, you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay.
Jiraiya is my favorite, but Tsurihime is the best, and also kind of my favorite, but like in a different way. Mm-hmm. I'm not counting Ninja Man because Ninja Man is okay. Let's talk about Ninja Man for a minute.
Okay,
because Ninja Man. Okay, if we're trying to judge who we think their favorite like ally is, do we just have to put the three God Generals and Ninja Man and Sandaiyu and like 30 Seconds of Hakumenru and Bun and Taro and Jiro all in the same pile?
Man,
because they're all characters, right? Even the giant robots are characters.
Yeah, that actually, I do want to talk about that for like a second, because that was something that I feel like, Daireno was not, and Jet Icarus was not, and
Cameo was, but
yeah, Tetra Boy a tiny bit, but not in the same way that the three God Generals were. And I thought that was such a cool idea, that the three God Generals themselves are like these like spiritual like ninja samurai master things that had existed all this time. I thought that was such a cool twist on the standard giant robot, where it's like, yep, there's robots and they're giant robots.
And that's not unique to Kakuranger, right? Like there are other Sentai shows where the giant robot is actually like a sentient being.
Oh, see, I did not know that.
Well, we did get some of it in Dairanger.
There's a little bit that the beasts are, but Daireno himself does just seem to be kind of an amalgamation.
Zyuranger, definitely. Like they are like the divine beasts.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Or wait, the divine beasts were Dairanger. Sorry. The guardian, the Megazord, basically
the Megazords
in Zyuranger, like the various like Zords are like lowercase g gods, and the Megazord is like, he's not like an uppercase g god, but like he's a lot closer to that. Like he is the like Captain Planet of like robot dino gods,
whole shebang.
And they do actually fight like literal Satan in that show. So
no kidding. Wow.
Yeah, Zyuranger's wild, dude. But like what do they call that dude? Anyway, the Megazord. I'm totally blanking on what the Japanese version of that is called. Even though I have definitely watched Zyuranger twice. He was like, he would talk to them sometimes, but the Zyurangers also had like a mentor, where the Kakurangers kind of never had a mentor other than the three God Generals. Like Sandai would show up once or twice, but that dude does, like, in my mind, that dude does not count as a mentor. Like, the narrator from the first half of this series is more of a mentor than Sandai ever was.
Yeah, so, I mean, of all of those, I really did like Ninja Man. I thought he was really fun. I love what they did with his character, that he is this perpetually impetuous, just super excited. He's good-hearted. He wants to do the right thing, but he just rushes in and kind of screws things up sometimes, and maybe it would be better if he chilled out, but he just can't bring himself to.
Yeah, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, like, Ninja Man is a great character for a kids show, because it's like, yeah, having positive impulses is really good, but having impulse control is also super important. Kids who are watching this show, maybe you should learn something.
So I really dug Ninja Man. I wish I feel like they actually could have done a tiny bit more with him, but the only thing that bummed me out a little bit about Ninja Man is that Ninja Man kind of took the place of a sixth ranger.
Yeah, who we never got. And I really dig the sixth ranger, because the sixth ranger shows up, and then all of a sudden, there's more giant robots. Now, they mitigated that by having, in fact, 2 full sets of giant robots. Plus Ninja Man, who is kind of himself a transforming giant robot.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, listen, he has a transformation sequence where, like, his head flips around and turns into a different head, and he transforms from a ninja into a samurai. Like, that counts.
Yeah. Okay, that does count. Well, it's never clear if he's a robot or not. I'm still not exactly sure what that dude's deal is.
He's a ninja man. What else do you want from him, Dave?
So yeah, I really dug. I love Muteki Shogun. I love the voice. I love that, like, Muteki Shogun is a castle that is also a giant robot, but the castle contains a statue of Muteki Shogun. I thought that was pretty incredible. Kakure Daishogun, I thought, had a super rad look. I really like what they did with the combinations between Muteki Shogun and Kakure Daishogun and Subasamaru.
Absolutely.
Sabasumaru. With the wing cannons, and then Super Kakure Daishogun. I thought all of that was really, really cool. I really dug the design. I thought that those giant robots just looked slick in a way that Jet Icarus never did. But Dyrano, I thought, had a super cool look. And then Jet Icarus, in my mind, was always just kind of like, he's a giant robot. And he's very large, and he has, like, cool weapons. He, like, shot his fist off and everything. But as far as an aesthetic goes, I didn't think he's not a patch on Dyrano or any of the Shoguns.
Okay, now, but what about Jet Garuda?
Jet Garuda was really cool, but even Jet Garuda, I don't think had quite... I don't know, man. Just didn't look as slick. Like, Dyrano is I don't know if you remember. I actually went back and just, like, looked at some pictures of Dyrano, like, 30 seconds ago, because I was thinking about it. Dyrano looks slick, dude. He's got a rad look.
Oh, no, dude. Dyrano rules. Dyrano sort of lived in my head as, like, the best, like, Megazord. Although now following Kakuranger, I don't know how I stack up Dyrano against Muteki Shogun and Kakure Daishogun. I think it's genuinely weird that we never had them combine. Like, they each combined with Subasamura, but, like, the fact that they never combined with each other, I think, was, like, a weird moment that we just never did.
I did genuinely keep expecting it to happen. And, like, even the very last episode, I was like, well, surely this is the episode where they will come, and they never do. Man, I'm so glad, by the way, that there are talented artists who dig Sentai and translate the big bulky suits into super cool fan art, so you can see in a little bit more, like, if this were an anime and it were a mecha, like, how rad this thing would look. You know what I mean? I'm just glad. Thank you. If you're an artist who does that sort of thing, thank you very much. I don't do anything. I just like to look at it, and I'm like, yeah, that's rad. That's all I got.
Hey, remember how for, like, 3 episodes there was a full second set of the Beast Fighters, or the Beast Generals?
Yeah. Yeah, it was...
And then as soon as they got, like, the god version of whatever they had, those things just disappeared and literally never showed up again, and I forgot about them until right now.
Sasuke shows up.
Does it?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's one point where he summons all three of the giant robots. He summons.
Oh, that's right.
He summons
that's
Battle Saruder and General Saruder and God Saruder, all at the same time. And I think that's the only time they show up after that.
Yeah. That was such a weird, side step. They're well, we're not going to give you Kakuranger Daishogun yet, but we feel like we've gotten to the part of the show where you ought to have new robots. So here are the prototypes of the, this other thing that we had been kind of working on.
Here you kind of go? Yeah, that was odd.
It was fun, though.
Yeah, it's, whatever. It was rad.
Got to have 10 giant robots fighting a bunch of resurrected yokai covered in, cyborg guns.
Man, Dr. Yagami, that guy was real cool. So, man, I'm just trying to think of any other of the wrap-up stuff that we generally talk about. I'm not coming up with anything.
Well, of course, we have to talk about, not Daimao.
Daimao. Oh, yeah, on the Creature Royale in their special special side category. Where does this dude fit? Okay, real quickly, first of all, Hakumenro, does he go on the list of bad guys? I say no. I just wanted to ask the question.
No, I don't think he does. He got turned into a bad guy briefly, but so much. If he had only ever been in 2 episodes and he spent most of that time as a giant statue, I would consider putting him on the list. But he was in on again, off again, halfway throughout this whole season.
Yeah, no. I'm with you. Just, Okay. So, where does... Oh, man, I don't know how we did this, and I have not noticed this in... This is not a joke, a calendar year, but on the list of bosses, we never put in the Dimensional Generals.
Did we not?
The Vyram Generals are not on this list. It goes Young Noble Jr., Shaddam Gara, Goma the 15th, Akamaru, Zydos.
Huh. I wonder if we were to go back and listen to that episode, if we talked about it and then just forgot to rank them.
Yeah.
Or we ranked them and forgot to write them down. Because I definitely remember ranking them against each other.
Yeah, that does sound familiar. Well, here's the question, Matt. Does Gray beat Young Noble Jr.? Or does Young Noble Jr. beat Gray? Because I can't imagine Gray was not at the top of this list before.
Yeah, I think it was Gray was at the top of those 4. I think Gray was at the top, then Radiguet, then Maria, then Transa. Yeah. I think that sounds right.
Well, I tell you what, we'll figure that out off air. But
here's what we can do. We still have to do one more Creature Royale bonus episode to fill out the rest of the Jetman stuff. Why don't we wait? First of all, I'll go back and listen to that episode and make sure that we didn't already do this. But if we haven't already done it, we can rank them in that Jetman monster ranking episode.
Yeah, sounds good. So, but on this list. So, like I just said, let me run through it again. It's Young Noble Jr. from, obviously, Kakuranger, Shaddam, and then Gara, both from Dairanger, then Goma the 15th, and then Akamaru, and then Zydos. Also, all of those guys are from Dairanger.
Okay.
Where does Daimao fit on this list?
Okay, so first of all, there is no way on the planet Earth that he goes at the top of this list, right?
Yeah, no, that's obviously... Yeah, sorry, that wasn't even a question.
Okay, so how far from the bottom does he manage to rise is the real question.
Okay, well, I definitely dig him more than Zydos. That's an easy pull.
Yeah, oh sure. Zydos was fun, but Zydos was definitely the third banana.
Yeah, okay, so I don't care about Zydos. I dig him better than Akamaru also. That's not real tough. Akamaru does have his high points, and he is a super weird, button little boy monster. And, well, let me pull that back, man. Akamaru deals in some, pretty heavy pathos. There's some intense storytelling going on around Akamaru.
There is a lot of... Okay, so let's let's talk about Daimao for a minute so we can sort of like get a gauge on how we're feeling about him instead of just looking at the list. So never in the history of Super Sentai has there been a bigger, like, terrible trade-in than that, like, when we got halfway through this series and we had to give up Young Noble Jr. and all we got in return, like, was Daimao.
Yeah, we're talking classic Superman versus Energy Superman here. Like, that's the...
You talking Electric Blue Superman, or are you talking about, like, the bad guy from Superman 4, The Quest for Peace?
No, Electric Blue Superman.
Okay.
Like, we traded in classic Superman, and we got Electric Blue Superman. That was a terrible... That's a bad... Anyways.
Maybe. I don't know. I put Electric Blue Superman above Daimao any day.
Okay, well, yeah, but versus... Okay, we're really tangenting hard here.
Daimao isn't a bad character, right?
He's not.
The problem with Daimao is that I think he is most equivalent to Goma the 15th, where, like, he should never have been the main bad guy. He should have been, like, the main bad guy's boss who appeared in, like, a couple of episodes and got very important right at the end.
Well, yeah. I'm going to take a slightly different tack on it. The thing with Daimao, the problem with him, is that it turns out he's actually a really, really interesting monster. And he's a really, really important character. We just didn't know it until the very last episode.
Yeah.
But, like, once that big reveal happened, there was so much storytelling from early on in the season that is leading up to this thing with Daimao. Like, so much stuff that kind of didn't make sense. Like, you're just being a jerk and that's your plan, monster, is weird. And, you know, like, I feel like the Kakurangers didn't put it together either. And, like, what's up with this giant cloud? It's here. They seem to be energized by it. Like, what's up? But then when they flip that switch, everything kind of fell into place in what I think was actually really good storytelling.
Okay, so I think you're right, and I think that was good. But the problem is that to set that up, they gave us a lot of this show where there wasn't a very cool main bad guy. You know? Like... Yeah,
that is a big ask. Even though the reveal was really good.
The reveal was great, but, like, okay. I was talking before about some of, like, the cons of Kakuranger, right? And how it's sort of disjointed.
Yeah.
And without looking up an episode list, I'm just going to sort of, like, spitball, sort of round these numbers off. But here is sort of, like, the flow of the show, and sort of from a very, like, high level. The first, like, 6 episodes introduce all 5 Kakurangers and get them through their first, like, get them all together and then get them all going on, like, one adventure together to sort of, like, lock them in as a team, right?
Right.
The next 6 or 7 episodes are all basically Freak of the Week episodes. But there's no mentor. There's no main villain. Like, you remember when we were at, like, episode 11 or 12, like, we kind of felt like we were at sea with this show, right?
Yeah.
And then you get Dr. Yagami introduced. He's in a couple of episodes to start tying things together. And then Young Noble Jr. shows up and you're like, okay, now this show works. You have somebody at, like, the head of the bad guys. You know that they have a plan. You know that their plan is to, like, bring back Daimao. And the Kakurangers have to fight against that to, like, stop them from doing it to destroy the world, right?
Right.
And everything's awesome for, like, what, 18 episodes or something?
Yeah, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly.
Like, Daimao gets out, they kill Young Noble Jr., and then we go into, like, the last third of the show where, like, the dude who was supposed to immediately destroy the world doesn't. He's just out and has replaced Young Noble Jr. as, like, the head of the bad guys, but without actually, like, doing anything cool. We lose a super, like, great, dynamic, cool villain in Young Noble Jr. And the show, like, listen, I loved a lot of the end part of this show, but I think I loved it in spite of Daimao being the main dude, not because of it. And then, like, he does,
an interesting point.
He does become very cool at the end, right? But if they had... Listen, my big, like, miracle fix for, like, the small problems that I have with the flow of this show, all I have to do is just putting in more Young Noble Jr., right?
Right.
Like, that's what we need. So, like, introduce Young Noble Jr. after episode 6 or whatever. Keep him alive until episode, like, 45. Have Daimao, like, not be able to escape. Maybe have a couple of close calls. And then you have the last, like, 5 or 6 episodes to really do, like, that big climax into what we actually got. Because what we actually got in this show was, like, 4 fake climaxes before the show actually ended.
Yeah, okay. Now that's a good point. Now, as we have discussed in the past, there are some, like, weird mitigating factors around
Sure.
that. So, like,
a lot of, like, seasonal and merchandising considerations.
Right, man. We can't, like, totally lay that at the feet of the storytellers, who I imagine are probably more irritated about it than we are.
Sure.
But back to this list, man. Where where does this dude fall?
Like, he is, like, listen, he is an effective villain. As the show closes to an end, you really get this sense of, like, he's not the sort of, like, fun, sexy, exciting villain that Young Noble Jr. is, but he is, like, he's menacing in a very different way, in sort of, like, an old man, crafty way, you know?
Yeah, definitely. But again,
and I don't want to discount that.
Yeah, but we only get this in the last episode. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say number 4 on the list, just below Gara.
Below Gara, above Goma the 15th?
I think he's cooler than Goma the 15th. He's cooler than Akamaru, even with the missteps in his writing. But Gara has so much going on, as does Shotum, and of course, that beautiful skull boy, Young Noble Jr.
Dude, everything will become skulls, Dave.
Everything will become skulls. So, yeah. So he pops in at number 4 on the list.
Okay. So, we've talked about the Rangers. We've talked about the robots. We've talked about Daimao. We've talked about the show sort of as a whole. We've talked about allies. There's no mentor to talk about.
Not really. So, man, it's always, it's funny, man. It always feels like we just started a season, like not last week or something, but these seasons really do go by very quickly. Mm-hmm. It really seems like, man, did we really just, has it been a whole year since we started watching Kakuranger?
I know.
Yeah, I guess it has, actually.
Because the season endings are so... The season endings are so, like, final, right? Because, like, other than cameos in other, like, anniversary Sentai shows, which we'll talk about in a minute, like, we don't see these dudes anymore.
Yeah, that's it. It is kind of a bummer. It's like, man, leave them wanting more, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so
speaking of those cameos, Matt.
Okay, before we get into those cameos, and I'm excited to do it, I feel like there's one more ranking question.
Hit me.
Of the 3 seasons that we have watched so far, where does Kakuranger land? I think last year we decided that we thought Jetman was better than Dairanger.
I think Jetman is... I still hold by that. I do think Jetman is better than Dairanger.
Mm-hmm. Dairanger is sort of like my all-time, like, the fave of my heart, but Jetman was better.
Yeah, Jetman straight up was better.
So do you think that because Kakuranger is not better than Jetman, do you think that Kakuranger is better or worse than Dairanger?
That is...
I know there's a lot of considerations here, right?
Yeah, obviously there are.
And it's been 2 years since we've seen Dairanger, which could either, like, really help or really hurt it in the rankings, depending on, like, how nostalgic you are for it.
Mm-hmm. they're so okay. I think I would like I think I like Ranger more.
Yeah, me
Which
too.
isn't to say I didn't dig Kakuranger, man. Like,
listen,
I liked it.
The seasons of Sentai that I like the least, I still like more than most other TV shows I watch.
Than a lot of television. You know what it is, Matt? Is that even though Kakuranger was really good, Ranger was also really good, and Ranger just had more for me. Ranger had more of those like big standout moments. Like, there was no point in Kakuranger where I got as like straight up blown away jazzed as I did about some of the elements of Ranger.
Yeah, like never when I liked Kakuranger a lot, but never watching Kakuranger did I have I never got chills watching Kakuranger, right?
Right. I got chills in a couple spots in Ranger, and that counts for a lot.
Right
so
near the end.
Man.
When they go through the roll call, but they don't have their powers, and they're up on that roof. Oh, it's so good.
Man, like Shoji, the warrior of love, on that motorcycle.
Oh, dude! Farewell, the Three Stooges. Still the finest episode of any Sentai I've ever seen.
Yeah, Well, and dude, I think it says a lot that our best monsters are from Ranger. It's Jin the Demon Fist and the three god generals, the Three Stooges.
Though to be fair, we have not finished Dredging Jetman, but
true. But yeah, as much as I really did dig Kakuranger, I actually think it's the series that I'm least into.
Bronze medal for Kakuranger. Now,
I
loved this season of this podcast. And again,
I had a blast
I'm not trying to talk down on Kakuranger. I think Kakuranger is like a really, really wonderful show. I'm just, listen, there's a list. There's got to be a top. There's got to be a bottom. There are only 3 places on this list now.
That's how it is, guys. Okay, Matt, so let's take a few minutes, and I don't want to go on too long, but let's take a few minutes and talk about Gokaiger, dude.
Oh, yeah. So there are 2 episodes of Gokaiger that are... Oh, Dave, do you want to take a second to explain Gokaiger to anyone who has not previously...
The 30-second version of this, if you don't remember from last year and you don't have any other Sentai input, I guess, Gokaiger is the 35th anniversary series of Super Sentai. And the hook of it is that the team, Pirate Sentai Gokaiger, is that they were space pirates and then they came to Earth, and all of the Sentai teams somehow had gotten together and all kind of sacrificed their Super Sentai energy to save the Earth from the bad guys. And the Pirate Sentai Gokaiger was like collecting all of their powers and then could transform into Sentai teams from past years and like use their special techniques, and a lot of which are basically Kakuranger Ball. I discovered watching this episode of Gokaiger, like they just really dig, like there's a ball and they all kick it and then it hits someone.
Yeah, well, because we mentioned this when we were first talking about Kakuranger Ball. That trick is that thing is actually from originally Gokaiger, which is the first season. So it's one of those like classic Sentai things that they go back to, even though it's a little dumb.
I really think it's dumb. But anyways, that's what Gokaiger is. And so for every season of Sentai before it, there is a single episode of Gokaiger, and sometimes more than one. And it turns out Kakuranger is one of those ones. It's a double episode.
Yeah, well, okay, sort of. So we watched these episodes. The first episode is basically a glorified clip show. Because I think it came in right near the end of the run of Gokaiger, right?
Yeah, it's episode 45.
Okay. And so they are sort of, ramping up for the end, but then also trying to, I guess, get people up to speed if they haven't been watching the rest of it.
I was going to say, they want to make sure that you've got the last, like whatever, anything you miss, they want to make sure you've got it.
So they are trying to like find the ultimate power of the Kakurangers, and they have some sort of clue that like the Yellow Ranger from Time Ranger had told them about going to a shrine or something.
Yeah, something like that.
The Yellow Ranger from Time Ranger, by the way, was like a professional pit fighter from the future. Time Ranger rules, guys.
Nice.
So they go to the shrine and they're looking for the Kakurangers, but they find a jar, and it is like the Ninja Man jar, the jar that Ninja Man was trapped in initially.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it no longer has the like particular enchantment that only someone from the Tsuruhime family can break it. Either that or one of the people on this Gokaiger team is secretly a member of Tsuruhime's family and just no one's talking about it.
Either version of that is fine, frankly.
So they break Ninja Man out and they ask like, dude, why were you in a jar? And I, of course, was worried because the last time Ninja Man got put in a jar, it's because like Daimao had tricked him into accidentally murdering a village full of people.
Right. He did not do that. Cool.
Yeah, this time he, like some zoo animals escaped and were about to, like, kill a little girl. And so he beat up the zoo animals, but accidentally, like, destroyed the zoo.
Yeah, he just went, he got really excited. He just went a little overboard.
That's how he does.
Yeah.
By the way, I do love when he is telling the story of how this happened. He like sits down like the narrator from Kakuranger, like he's got the fan and he's sitting behind the little table. What was that called, Dave?
Man, I do not remember.
Rokugo or something.
It's something like that. I do, but when he did that, I was like, oh man, I had completely forgotten about that guy. That guy was the best.
I had the exact same experience.
He literally just disappeared. Like, they just stopped using the character and then, like, just never mentioned him again. That was it.
I think he did show up briefly one time. But that was it. And it was such a shame. I loved that dude. And it's kind of weird that he went away. And so he sits down, he tells the whole story. And they're like, okay, well, we would need to get the ultimate power from him. We need to, like, ask him nicely, but first we need to make a good impression. And so, like, they bring him to their house, and listen, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this episode. They're trying to make a good impression. Eventually, they start telling them how they are the Gokaijers, and they explain the whole thing that Dave just explained to you. And then we get a montage of them transforming into all the different teams. Now, when I say they get a montage of transforming into all the different teams, I'm not exaggerating. They transform into all the different teams, like going backwards season by season. They do 34 clips of them transforming into different teams.
Yeah, because they're like, this is what we are. Clip. It's pretty fantastic, actually.
And I kind of didn't realize until about a third of the way through that, like, oh, they're not stopping. Like, I thought they were going to give, like, a couple of key examples. And then by the time they had, like, worked their way backwards to, like, O-Ranger, I was like, wait, hold on a second. What is happening here? And for the next 3 minutes, I'm just sitting here listening to some dude shout the name of every season. It was kind of amazing. Anyway, so they are trying to, like, get him to give their power, and he actually has had some growth since Kakuranger ended, because he says, listen, I have in the past, my overzealousness to do good has gotten people into trouble, so I am no longer just
me. I have gotten into trouble.
Yes, okay, but other people too, I think. It's like, listen, I'm not gonna just jump into stuff like this anymore. I can't just give you the Kakuranger power, but I will hang out to, like, watch you to make sure that you're somebody that I can trust. And then if you are, I will give you the power.
Yeah. Now, at the end of this episode, it's the only actual Kakuranger we get. We do get a much older Tsuruhime who says she's, like, in her ninja gear, And she says, I was going to check those dudes out, but like it seems like Ninja Man's got it. And then she turns into like a flash of energy and like Ninja teleports away. It was rad.
It was very cool. I wish we would have gotten more of her. And then the next episode, like, listen, last year when we watched the Gokaiger episode for Jetman, like, it was really sort of important. Like, watching Jetman without that episode of Gokaiger kind of feels like an incomplete experience.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, that is not the case with this episode of Gokaiger. Like, it's an episode of Gokaiger, Ninja Man's in it, it's cool, but, like, it's not, like, hugely significant, nor is it, like, does it really pull on those, like, Kakuranger heartstrings.
Right. Well, you know, there were fewer Kakuranger heartstrings to pull on, to be honest. It just was less of that kind of show, I feel like.
Yeah, and plus the ending to Kakuranger was a lot happier than the ending to Jetman. So like I was not a raw exposed nerve at the end of Kakuranger the way I was last year, and like needing something to fill that void.
Yeah.
Anyway, like basically what happens in the next episode is that the monster they have to fight like zaps people with this like evil space crystal that makes them become evil, and so Ninja Man doesn't trust them because they have become evil. And then, like, the goodness in their hearts overcome, like, the evil that people are trying to put on them, which you could kind of tie into, like, the last episode of Kakuranger.
It's there.
Where they have to put the evil away behind the sealed door of their hearts. And then they turn into a giant robot and they punch a monster to death. Like, it's cool, it's fun, but it's not, like, super Kakuranger-y. But there is another episode of another show. There's an episode of Ninninger, which is the 2015 show, in which it's like episode 7 of that show. They are still like those ninja are still learning how to be ninja and like fight their version of all the yokai.
Right.
And like one of their uncles like calls Sasuke and the Red Ranger from Hurricaneger, which is the other ninja show. And they just show up to, like, help train the kids for an episode.
Nice.
And, like, it's a whole episode of, like, Sasuke and this other dude, like, being cool older ninja and just telling the kids, like, you are terrible ninja. Like, you have the worst ninja, like, ethos of all time. Because the Ninjers, if you don't remember us talking about it before, they are the ninjas who don't bother to hide. And so the whole time Sasuke's like, no, dude, you gotta hide. Like, hiding is very important.
Oh, there was a great moment I forgot to mention it from the Gokaiger episode where they're like, well, we have to find the Kakurangers. We have to find like their ultimate power so we can get it. Then they run into the dilemma of like, oh, wait, they're ninja. It's going to be super, super hard to find those dudes.
Yeah, like they are hidden. It is literally in their name.
Yeah, and I thought that was a really great moment.
Yeah, it was super fun. And this Shinkenger episode is not Shinkenger, sorry. Ninninger episode is super fun. They are fighting a yokai who is a cat that is also like a digital watch. Ninninger has weird monsters. But it is a time traveling cat that is also a watch. And they have to like defeat him, and like Sasuke and this Hurricaneger guy are worried about a time paradox from a time that they encountered this monster 10 years ago. It's like I don't want to ruin it for you in case you are still planning to watch Ninninger, because it's a fairly recent show. But it was really fun.
I've already got it pulled up, Matt.
Yeah, and if you like miss Sasuke and want to like get a few more minutes with that dude, it's really fun.
Nice.
And there is, and I have not watched this, and I don't think I'm wrong about it. This upcoming year, when we start to watch O-Ranger,
okay,
is the first year that Super Sentai started to do their crossover, like, special episodes. Because now, every year, you know, like, this year's Sentai will have, like, a big sort of, like, movie crossover thing with the previous year's Sentai. Like, it is a tradition. But it is a tradition that, if I remember correctly, goes back to Kakuranger and O-Ranger teaming up.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we are going to... I don't think those episodes are actually in the DVD box sets because they're not part of, like, the TV rights.
Oh, is it like the movie version?
But I think we can.
Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
can probably find a copy of it somewhere to talk about, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I feel fairly confident that you're correct in that, Matt.
Okay, well, we have talked for about an hour about this, and I think that we're kind of out of things to say. Do you have any sort of final Kakuranger thoughts?
No, this happens to me every year, man. I always want to have some like final pithy thing to say, but I don't. I've had a blast doing the show with you, Matt. I really enjoyed Kakuranger. And to everybody who listens, man, just thanks a lot. Like,
oh yeah,
it's super fun to make this show with Matt, and I like Super Sentai, and it's a great excuse in a busy life to hang out with my brother. But it's really, really gratifying that there are people out there who dig the show and share it with their friends and enjoy listening to it. So thanks so much. Like, thanks so much for listening. It means a lot to us, and we hope that we can continue to do a show that you guys dig.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I kind of forget about it when this season ends, because like, oh, that means it's the end of this season, the beginning of the next season. But that also means that we have now been doing this show like almost without fail weekly for over 3 years.
Yeah, wow.
And like, I think of them as like discrete entities, right? Because we do them in seasons. But the fact is, like, we have been doing this for a long time. And when we started, it was basically like, you know, our like people that we knew personally would listen to it and nobody else. And so the fact that like other people have found it and they enjoy it and we are able to enjoy them enjoying it really means a lot to me. I mean, Dave already said all this stuff, so I'm just sort of reiterating it. But go like hit that rewind button for about a minute and listen to what Dave is saying, and then imagine that I'm also saying it, which shouldn't be too hard because our voices are pretty similar.
Yep.
And then you can fast forward back to this moment. All right. Yeah, and that Dave is finally going to do it for a view to a Kakuranger.
Yeah. How about that?
But before we finish up here, I would like to remind you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you have want to get any updates on future episodes and check out what we were talking about as we are heading into Season 4, we are on Twitter at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember, shouting in the iTunes review section, there are 5 stars. Rate, review, subscribe. Tell a friend. Now is the perfect time. We're starting a new season. And that is a great time to hop on. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio, specifically produced by our good friend, producer Mark, who you have heard once or twice on this show in the background, but he is our largely silent partner, but the guy without whom we really could not do the show. Partially because we just never learned how to edit it, but also, like, you know, he is a very important part of the show, and we don't call him on enough. So thank you, Mark, for all that you do, all the hard work over the years. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.